since imagination is so important, it's not limited. We go deeper into the future with the imagination, and we do have the right guide to do so. He's the business and economics reporter for the Jerusalem Post, and he's with us today, and he's going to take us to our first panel that deals with the future of tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Niv Ellis.
So we have a great panel for you today. I'm just going to quickly introduce everyone. We're going to start with Noam Ben Chaim, who's the Senior Product Manager at Google Travel. Mr. Ben Chaim has been with Google since 2007, in Zurich since 2008. He's currently leading the travel team in Zurich, focused on flight search. Prior to that, he worked on Google Maps, which is in itself tourist-related. He joined Google in Tel Aviv, and he was the first product manager hired in Israel, worked on launching products for Israel and the Middle East. So Noam Ben Chaim, please come up and join us. Okay, we also have Adir Ron, the Strategic Innovation Lead for Microsoft. Adir, in his role, is responsible for leading business and technology innovation solutions for Microsoft's large ecosystem for customers and partners with strong focus on mobile, social, big data, and cloud entrepreneurship. So that's to be very important for us in our discussion today. Adir. Here we go. Thank you. I'm going to mispronounce your name, Ari. I'm sorry. We have Ari Huchowski. You can come up and correct me. The CEO and Chief Evangelist at Espoo Innovation Garden in Finland. He's a professional commercializer, international brand builder and marketer, startup company growth advisor, generalist on nanotechnology, open innovation, science and technology parks, high-tech ecosystems, among other things. He has nearly 2 decades of experience in executive and managerial positions in ICT firms, and has been coaching for 50 startups. So Ari, please come on up. Thank you. And how do you pronounce your last name?
Huchkowski.
Huchkowski.
So that's pretty close.
Yeah, okay. And finally, we have Yossi Fatael, the elected CEO of the Israeli Incoming Tour Operators Association. So Yossi, please come up and join us. Okay, so this is just going to be a simple format. I'm just going to ask questions and ask everybody to sort of respond. We're going to try to limit our answers to about 2 minutes each, unless it's really interesting. So we're going to start with the most basic question, which is, do you actually think that tourism will be fundamentally different in the future than it has been in the past, and why? So Noam, let's start with you.
Fundamentally, no. People will still go places, visit them, experience them, enjoy it, I hope. So I think fundamentally it's not going to be different. There are lots of things that will be different about it, but I think the core of going somewhere, experiencing it, is not going to change. It might be augmented, it might be made simple, but at the core of it, tourism is an experience, and that, I think, hasn't changed in about 200,000 years.
Okay.
I think I agree. The main idea around tourism is how to experience a location or a city, and that will stay the same. Things that will be different, and I think will change how we perceive tourism as very different, would be how to get the personalized message and experience for me. Because today tourism is built on a lot of data and a lot of going around through information and trying to understand what is best for me, what is most fitted for me. And with the new era of the cloud and the applications, we have so much information around us that I think it's become even bigger than people can experience. So today's experience is not very personalized. It's you start and shop for yourself and try to understand a city that you don't know and reservations that you can't understand. That would fundamentally change. That would be built around you, and I think that would change the overall way that we perceive tourism is way more specific and personalized and not just a generic kind of visit in a city.
I believe that tourism will continue to be more and more fragmented, and it will be more and more difficult to arrange sort of like organized tourism, and perhaps we're seeing more and more a shift from tourism into a visiting business, and visiting and staying business, and it will be a big challenge to be able to create some kinds of packages out of this whole thing, to catch people like, I guess, like us.
It's going to be totally different, with all due respect. Societies change, the world is changed, everything is becoming much more chaotic. People are chasing now experience. Everybody's talking about experience. What is exactly experience? It had nothing to do with databases, by the way. So the human societies change, our industry will be changed, and I think from the technical point of view, yes, we're going to travel, we're going to walk, we're going to visit, but the industry itself will be totally changed, and I don't believe that with the continuous, that yes, people will go there, and personalization that was mentioned here is going to change the whole ball game of the industry. So we need to think about huge changes, otherwise we're going to stay independent.
Well, this is great. We sort of have everyone lined up from not fundamentally changing to completely fundamentally changing. I'm going to have to make you switch seats if this doesn't work out in the future questions. So we have this Tourism 2.0 around the corner, perhaps already here. Technology is really changing the way that people get places, the way that people interact when they're at a place. So can you talk a little bit about how technology is changing the way that people the way that tourists function when they're visiting someplace, and add on to that, what can local businesses do to prepare for that, to plug into that, in order to take advantage of the new technological changes? I think we're going to pass the mics back and forth. Does this one work? All right, great. Go ahead.
Just to be clear, I actually think we all agree. I think fundamentally tourism as a personal thing, as something I do, will not change. The industry, yes, all of it will turn upside down 3 times, in a decade. And with that I agree. I think technology is one of the things that will drive this rapid change in the industry of tourism. I think a lot of it has to do with the thing that we all have in our pockets, or most of us have in our pockets, the phone. And it also touched what Adir said about personalization. It's my phone, it's in my pocket, it's with me when I travel. I think that's a single thing that will change most of how people travel, how people behave when they travel, how they experience the world when they travel. Having access to more information, first and foremost, is the thing that will change travel for most people. In the past, we used to travel with either a thin or thick travel book, but even the thickest travel book would have a limit on the amount of information it would have. Your phone is much thicker than the thinnest, much thinner than the thinnest travel book, and yet it has a lot more information than any of the travel books, plus the tour operators, plus your travel agent would have been able to provide you. And I think so one thing that changes is the amount of information you have as you travel. I think the second thing that changes is the personalized aspect of that. So no longer everyone will go to the same places that are in the Lonely Planet or the Eyewitness or whatever textbook guidebook you choose. My phone will know that I like to go to the fringe galleries and will recommend me the fringe gallery that I should visit in Berlin or wherever I go. And I'll experience the city in a different way than some other tourist. The third thing that will change, and this is, I think, relates to your question about local businesses, and to some extent what the public sector role should be, is about mapping the physical world to the information world, to having a lot more representation, more contextual representation of places online that I as a tourist can interact with, and easier, it will make it easier for me to share my experiences with my friends, which is, half of traveling is sharing that experience later on, and will drive more people, my friends or people like me, to go to those places again. So I think, and this is where I think there's still a gap, having rich presence for places in the internet, online, and being able to physically, when I visit a place, interact with the place, both physically and online, is the thing that will, in my opinion, the thing that we don't yet have today, that will continue to change and make it even easier for me to share my experiences and help my friends to get better experiences when they travel to similar places.
I think when we think about tourism 2.0, we can see two different things happening, which is kind of mixing with one another. The first one is really everyone is becoming a self-service kind of tourist. They go to the city, they have their phone, they're trying to experience it, and without going to the hassle of, tour guides, and they do believe in self-service. But I think that the phone today, as we see it, is still not as personal as we would like it to be, because it does know everything about me, or most of it, but it doesn't really know everything about how I would best fitted to experience the city, because this is information that usually is stored through the city, through the local businesses, through the connections between them, and not just about me. So I'm a big theater fan. I know that that's what I want to experience, but where is the best things that are fitted for me? This kind of data is not something that I have. That's something that has to do with the way it's perceived to me. And I think key thing in what local businesses and the public sector has to do in order to change it is really embrace the idea of self-service into our way of experiencing the city. Key element in that is the Internet of Things, is the way to really put a lot of sensors that will make me use my phone to self-serve, ask and get some questions. All of those sensors can help me understand how to walk through the city, where to get the car, where to park it, which is the best place fitted for me. It also allows us not just to talk to the city, really talk to it through our mobile phone, but have the city collect a memory of everyone and how they experienced that kind of tour. And then with the big data analytics, which is, I think, a huge part of this, smart cities and Internet of Things revolution, they will be able to tell you, you know what, I know that you like theater and you like bars. See how other people that liked theater and bars experienced the city. Where places did they go? How did they like it? By the way, we today work on a startup that uses this kind of device, our Microsoft Band, which stores the way that, how excited are you from the skin of your tone and from your heart rate, and really can help you see which were the places that really engaged you, the ones that, when I like theater, which were the best places that got my heart rate pumping. This is way better than me just logging into a place and giving 5 stars or 4 stars, and this is exactly the Internet of Things. It's not just me taking information, it's me also sharing information in order to make this experience more personalized and more self-serviced to me, without anyone really knowing me in the city, but they do know history of people that act and behave like me. And just one last thing is, as I said, the experience itself. Because today when we look at a lot of those applications, they kind of look like, a great search engine, and we have one here, like Google, which is really amazing, but it's also overwhelming. I don't want to see an app that I should browse, through all of the recommendations ever made in the last 10 years. I want something that the experience itself will try to be more clean, more personalized to me, even fitted to a phone, to a watch, or to other wearable devices. So it's not just about the city being able to talk to me in the Internet of Things, and not just the big data that has to analyze all of that and really give everyone his way to journey and experience in a self-service kind of manner. It's also how to present it. And I think today's applications are not fitted, they're kind of one size fits all, which is not the way that we want to see tourism 2.0.
Do you think, just a quick follow-up to that, and then we'll move on, that providing all these connections is something that is going to come from the private sector and from the individual businesses who install chips and whatnot that can connect to your phone or your data, or is this something that needs to come from the city, from the government, in order to create an infrastructure?
So I can tell you of two case studies that we're working on right now. The one is the Caribbean. You probably know that shipping and cruising company. This is private sector. They did it on all of their ships. They're using our technology in order to connect all of those sensors because they see a great increase in, personalizing the services, getting more upsales, getting, this is the way for them to differentiate it and make sure that if you have like 50 opportunities to go in a ship and those ships are huge, which was the best one for you? Which was the one that you will make, and I as a private sector will make more money of you because you will spend more time in that and you will get your, feedback as that trip was best for me. But another one is Autolib, which you might have heard. This is something that we've been working with the Paris government, which is something that they put place where you can order traffic and you can order a car, and not just the GPS part, which is easy, but also where you should park it, who could help you park it, where is the nearest parking place for you, and you can really get all of the experience of transportation, not just getting into the car, getting into a place, and then need to find traffic. And if you ever been in Paris, traffic and parking is very hard. So this is something that the city took one step further with the Internet of Things in order to get people that they do want to scout the city and they do want to use, that could be operators and cars, and really make a close loop of that and not just telling them go to your GPS and wander off.
Okay.
So this is two things, and I think in the end it will be a mixture of them because there is great profit in that, but there's also great service in that.
Okay. All right. What about in Finland, in your
Well,
experience?
reflecting on that Paris thing, Paris and its ring road peripheric, that's what I call a traffic jam. I gotta agree that Internet of the Things is going to make a big splash, but at the same time it's probably not going to be living up to the hype because none of the hypes never really realized precisely in the way that the Gartner curves are suggesting us. All these different systems for sharing important stuff to get all kinds of different data to be available, to be used. But what I'm really looking forward to is that big data, predictive analytics develops, and that there one day would be a system that actually would suggest something interesting. Because it's still quite basic what they do, but they do have to go deeper and really figure out who we are and what we might be interested in. And then with technology, I also see one huge challenge that is rendering many of these great systems and smartphones and everything useless. And that is something different governments and cities could perhaps do something about. Does anybody here like to go on a trip somewhere in Europe or something and come back with $1,000 of mobile roaming charges? Well, because when I landed here, I checked, I got a text message on my smartphone and it said, okay, it's like close to $10 per megabyte. Well, which means that typical tourists normally would just simply switch their mobile roaming off. And if mobile roaming is off, so how are you going to be using any of those systems? At least there should be whole metropolitan area-wide free Wi-Fi's if the teleoperators won't agree to do something about their humongous roaming charges.
Or at least, when you arrive at the airport, you should have 7 booths in front of you offering to get you a local SIM card, which is something that's shockingly unavailable in any of the airports that I've gone to.
Well, there is even that would be quite a challenge because who would realistically open their smartphone and, you know, pick up that tiny little nano SIM card there and try to insert something else there? Of course not. It would have to be something that is a little box that you just put in your pocket, and it has mobile roaming on it, and it shares it via Wi-Fi. And there is actually a system like that already exists, and it's called Goodspeed. It's a Nokia spin-out company.
Very cool. So just like a little personal hotspot that you carry with you the whole time?
Yeah, and actually it already has like mobile roaming agreements with in like 30 different countries.
All right.
So that's what we use when we go and travel somewhere for a longer period of time.
You see any chance that we can get
Yeah, I
that here?
understand. My role is to be the devil advocate in this panel, so I'll do it.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. First of all, smartphones are stupid. People are supposed to be smart, not smartphones, okay? Technology, with all due respect, in tourism is mainly a promise that we hear for the last decade that is not fulfilled itself. I mean, people here talking about travel do 2.0 now. Do anybody remember travel 1.0? For the last decades, we had promises, and the fact is that 95% of the industry is not relevant in the technology field. 95 people of those who are sitting in this room don't have an efficient or effective website, efficient or effective Facebook page, but still we are going to panels who promise us something about the future that's, by the way, many times it's cool, had nothing to do with commercial. And the transition from cool to commercial in our industry is not happening that much. Now, again, with all due respect, experience has nothing to do with technology. And people like to think that they will pick up their smartphone and they will feel happy. Maybe when I'll be under the Tower Eiffel, he will tell me also that he loves me and I'll feel very wanted and good, but this is not happening. Now, and we, I mean, the only other example that I feel that it's close to what is happening about the discussion about travel and tourism is, of course, the diet industry. Everybody knows what to do. Everybody do it, but everybody also not succeeding in doing the diet. I mean, technology is something that we are talking, but is not really happening. In our industry, and I'm talking about the people on the field. What you see that we have some giants who are actually taking control of the industry. 2/3 of the commercial businesses are happening with the two major groups in the world. So, of course, I mean, I love technology. People who knows me in the room know that I'm very aware of the development, but still, the end of the thing is that we are dealing with people, and it's supposed only to help us to deal with people, not to replace us or replace any part of the industry serving or creating experience or transferring the people from one point to other, as people mentioned here. Those who are making money in today's world, I mean tourism and technology, those who are telling us how to make money in tourism industry with technology. Most of the people who are served in the industry are not making money from technology. This is the fact of life, I'm sorry. So, of course, technology going to have a big part in our industry. But still, if we will not understand that the center of the industry is the people, because this is people who are serving people, that can use some devices to talk to each other, I think we're going to miss it again. And probably next year the panel will be around Travel 3.0. Another promise that we will all believe and will heard very promising. So the numbers of things that were supposed to happen in the last decade with technology, we are now in 2015. Still, most of the industry is not really managed or controlled by technology, but by people. And we still believe that something will happen in the future. So the effect will be, but it's not going to be that dramatic. We need to embrace the changes. It needs to be part of our business. Mm-hmm. But still, the end of the day, we needed to meet here in this room, face to face with the people. Although in 2015, I would expect that we'll have a video conference.
Well,
we'll go online and...
Is this getting streamed anywhere? No. I don't know, that's interesting. I just was on a trip recently and I took my iPhone with me and I connected to Wi-Fi. All the places that we stayed were places that were found on TripAdvisor based on people's ratings. And every person that we talked to during that experience
don't take it to the other side.
No, it was
of course I
they
know
actually
it's happening.
said, can you rate me highly on TripAdvisor? You know, it obviously didn't change the fact of, you know, how I was trekking in the mountains when I was on the trip, but it certainly directed the way. So I think that technology is not about replacing the experience so much as...
You are talking about social network now, not about technology. About how you are relating to other people. Social media is a different issue. I don't think it has to do with all the cool stuff that you mentioned here. This is a different panel, by the way. Yes, I want to read reviews. By the way, in TripAdvisor, the most important reviews are the bad reviews, not the good reviews. The reviews that actually put people into making booking is the negative one. So social media is a different story in my eye. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I completely
I only look at the good
disagree.
ones myself.
I think... No, that's cool. I'll be the angel's advocate. I think what we failed to do maybe in this question is define, tourism 1.0, which was around the planning process of tourism. And that has dramatically changed with Google Travel, with Airbnb, with TripAdvisor. So the planning process is vastly different today than it was 10 years ago when we had to book everything and, go to an agent. I don't know, I wouldn't invest in agencies today that are not self-service and not working through Airbnb and Google Travel. So the planning process has dramatically changed. And now people want to say, I don't want to just plan my trip in self-service. I want to experience it in self-service. This is, I think, the revolution is already happening. I don't know where the statistics of 95% was not affected. I do believe that was drastically affected. I can definitely see that my friends here in Google, and definitely the ones from Google Travel could speak otherwise in those kind of numbers. So the planning process has dramatically changed. We're talking about the experience now, but saying that technology hasn't changed anything, or tourism 1.0 didn't happen is just really failing to see the point today.
And I bet there are many of us who want to have 90% of it unplanned.
And I'll add one more thing to that. I think one aspect of tourism that is changing is the tools we use. And this is about technology, not reviews. I got here today by a bus. I used Google Maps to find my way on a bus. Yesterday I used a taxi to get from some place in Tel Aviv to another place. I used Uber to get there.
This is going wrong. I'm sorry. You don't gonna do it in front of me. You can do it after the panel. I didn't mean any of what you are now saying. I didn't say that technology is not part of the industry. I didn't say that Google Maps is not important. With all due respect, Airbnb is a different story. The thing that you are sharing experience, it's a totally different field that had to do with social media. The buzzword, the talking, technology is a major. Of course, without technology, you will not exist. Everybody is using technology. To try to say between the lines that I tried to even to mention that we can live without technology, I mean, don't go this, it's too easy.
Maybe we understood what was the point that you were trying to make.
The point that I'm trying to make is that technology is very important. At the end of the process, this is a people-to-people industry first. We are talking about technology, which is an important part of our life, I like also to travel with my smartphone. I mean, doing booking through the internet is not that big changes, but I'm not saying that only travel agent will exist in the future. Although, if you put attention, what is happening in the internet era, that actually huge travel agencies like the Expedia Group and Booking, which actually controlling the industry, are taking all the businesses. Instead of having the long tail theory that we all believed in the past that will happen with the internet, the end of the process is that we have only two giants who are actually controlling most. You are saying TripAdvisor, which actually controlled by Expedia, so on and so on. Technology is very important. I like to travel with my smartphone. But the end of, if we want to, the other end, we are talking about personalization. This is the one-to-one. So don't go this way that I'm saying, listen, technology is not important, the other way. But with all due respect, we need to talk about the service, the customer, all the other things that you mentioned.
I just think that when we talked about, and I don't want to get into that specifically because we have more questions, but 10 years ago we thought that people-to-people would be in the planning process. I recently booked a flight and went through an hotel and booked tickets and everything, and I didn't see or talk to one person during this whole process. But that was technological agents. No one was in the other side that helped me do that in the way that was best fitted to me. So I think we should just agree to disagree on that area, because I'm
in the interest of time, let's also move on to a few other topics. We were supposed to have a representative from Airbnb on the panel. Unfortunately, I had to cancel last minute. But this idea of the sharing economy is really interesting. Certainly Uber, Airbnb, things like that are changing tourism. There are clear upsides, but there are also downsides for, say, established hotels, maybe taxi services, which leads to the related questions about how governments should be responding in terms of regulation. So I wanted to ask you if you can just talk briefly about the winners and the losers in this sharing economy and how it's affecting tourism, and if you have a comment about sort of what role government should play in balancing those. And we don't have to go down the line. If you have something to say, just you can jump right in.
Okay, so I don't think there are losers in this revolution, because I think everyone is changing and changing for the best. Even the Hotels.com, Expedia, when they're trying to compete with this new market, they are changing for the best. This I think happened way too late, because sharing economy was one of the basic things that the internet as a concept was invented, and I do agree here that they became some giants that controlled this industry, and the sharing economy is definitely a way for us to allow a good kind of a competition in that field, and not just leave it in an uncompeted, and that also drives prices, that drives services, and also that drives experience, because now when a hotel wants to really differentiate itself, it needs to think what it does different than things that are offered through Airbnb. So that also changes the way that everyone is trying to compete. There is a huge lack of regulation today. I'm not sure that I can see government today, because as we know, governments and regulations, they usually come too little too late. So I'm not sure that that's the flashlight that I'm looking for. I think that in order to, and Airbnb is doing it fantastically, in order to be more relevant, they have to take the kind of regulation part to themselves, because people that have bad experience with shared economy usually don't tend to come back to it. So in a perfect world, the government would do that. I think the private sector here, and definitely Airbnb, has to take it. One thing that I do think is going to be more evolved in this kind of process is Airbnb today in sharing economy is talking about a very specific part of the planning, and if I want to connect it to our different or our previous conversation here, and this is, I think, a huge opportunity for startups and for innovation in that field, is taking the sharing economy into more of a process. It's not just going to be the booking. It's, you know, how to experience the city, where to go, buying tickets together, but everything in a one place. Because today, sharing economy is based on a lot of silos that if you're not a techie, you're not going to be able to find them. So I think what Airbnb and maybe some hosters on top of it should do is really try and, you know, bundle that into a one experience. That's kind of what, you know, Expedia and Hotels.com has done for the planning process. They took a lot of different places and tried to book it into a bundle. This is, I think, one great opportunity because shared economy today is still not bundling. It's still really siloed.
I'm going to cut you off so we can...
I think also the obvious, there are winners, and those are usually consumers, travelers. They have more options. They now can stay with a you know, a room, you know, benefit from locals if you do it Airbnb way. Basically, they have more options. Doing things is easier. Getting a taxi in a country you don't know, getting a taxi is now easier because it's just like click on your phone. There are losers. And the losers are, as usual, when an industry is disrupted, businesses who don't adjust lose. That's not just for travel, that's true for every single industry. I can point at, you know, in the last 100 years, there have been those changes in literally every single industry. In every single industry, there are businesses that flourished and businesses that didn't. I don't think regulation has managed to curb disruption or innovation, and I wouldn't want it to. And I don't think it's the role of government to regulate disruption or regulate innovation as long as consumers benefit. So I think that's my view.
All right.
The winner is the individual traveler who knows what he or she wants. And the big loser is the mass tourist who needs to be helped a lot and who doesn't know how to use technology in two big categories. And then there is a third, third thing, which is like the second big loser, and that's all those startups that are just trying to be followers, creating yet another that already exists. So startups that are going into a tourism-related business, they had better think twice. Is their idea big enough? Has it been done already? And especially for investors who are putting their money in those. So original ideas, of course, will win out of those ones.
With regards to governments, the one thing that technology created in the world, which is very good, is transparency. And I think it's going to influence also our industry. If you are talking about the states, governments, I think that in the future we'll see more regulation on businesses into the global tourism industry. Now money is moving around and government don't get their share. They are more worried about it. I mean, if you see now that in our country 50% of the hotel reservations is done on a global website. Nobody is paying tax here. There is no ma'am and all the others. So, and we see when we are talking with government today, they want to be more active in this field, this part of the economy that really happening nowhere. And you see how they are now going after Google and other global companies more and more. Also happened in Israel. We saw it in Italy lately. We saw it in the States, I think in the past year. So I think government will be more and more involved in the global tourism with the technology effects that we all mentioned here in the near future, because much of what we are doing will be more transparent to the government to try and to regulate it. Winner or loser, I think I totally agree. The winners are the customers. Everything is happening around him. Is he going to be more happy or satisfied? The opposite. Because the more options the clients have, the less they know or really feel safe with what they're choosing. And we see it more and more today. And Google published a very good article about it, that in today's world, customers need to go, I think it was like something like 10 sources of information before they are making their decision. So the decision-making process, even though they have much more information, is much more complicated.
Okay, I think we started a little late, and so I'm just going to ask one last question. It's going to be a little bit out of left field or maybe east field. China is becoming the largest source of global tourism. It has become the largest source of global tourism in 2012, and the number of Chinese tourists is predicted to rise to 200 million by 2020. So the composition of tourists, the people who are tourists, is changing. The language that they speak is different. The culture that they come from is different than it has been in the past. How does that affect this issue and the kind of work that you guys are doing when you're having people from a different language, a different culture, different set of characters that can be read, and how is that playing into this issue?
I think that's great. I think that's opportunities for everyone, opportunities for businesses to expose their options to the Chinese market, opportunities for Chinese companies, obviously, to go west or east. It's obviously a challenge. Businesses now needs to start building their services to work well, as you mentioned, in Chinese characters. Definitely a challenge. But I think at the end of the day, this will not make the whole world, reading and writing Chinese. This is more likely to expose more Western everything to the Chinese market.
Maybe a lot more Google Translate. Yeah.
I think the local has become global, and China is just one example of it. When local businesses today and every city today, they wants to be present itself to the global market, has to think globally. China is definitely a huge opportunity, I think, for that to actually happen, because that has, we've taken a lot of times, the easy step of just translating into English our services and just, talking to that market and trying to maybe figure out that everyone else would be fitted into that. And it's, again, the same problem of one size fits all. I think China is disrupting that. That one size fits all cannot last, and each business today or offering or that is locally based, if he wants the Chinese money, he has to think globally. The technology is already there. We can do that today with translation, with augmented reality, with a lot of devices that will enable them to self-serve and not put people that know Chinese. So we come back to the fact that people today is just part of the process. It's not all of that. And it just depends, it's just another step in the evolution that has to happen today if you want to see the currency coming.
One thing is in HRM, so a team of 5 in tourism industry in near future will have to be capable of speaking 14, 15 different languages. That's something you just do. Just hire people who have those necessary skills. And secondly, of course, all the different materials. Like this week we have launched our new Visit Espoo.fi website. And okay, right now it's in Finnish and English, and 2 weeks from now we're launching our Chinese version of it. So Chinese version is always nowadays a part of what we always do. We do that always before Spanish or French or German or anything else. China is pretty important. But other than that, it is just, start saying your ni haos and xixies, and there you go. They're just people, just like everybody else.
Tonight I'm going to meet the ambassador of China here in Israel. We are holding a dinner in the Dan Hotel, and I sit with him a few weeks ago. If there is one thing still, I'm the opposition in this panel. I think technology is not a major issue with the Chinese market. Today there are 100 million, they're talking about 200 in 2020. Chinese don't like to feel local, by the way. They need their food. And they ask us to give more permission from cookers to China to come to work in Israel, so they will consider Israel as a destination. Again, it has nothing to do with technology. So if we're talking about the Chinese market, I think technology is not a major issue. Most of them will travel the next 5 to 10 years, 5 years, let's say, in organized groups mainly. And if I will have to to consult Oren, who is sitting here from the Ministry of Tourism, I will tell him, I will offer him to invest more in the infrastructure and not in technology, as much as it had to do with the Chinese market.
All right, well, I want to thank all the panelists. I don't think we have time for questions. Sorry about that.